Welcome, students, to session number 2 of your career success. My name is Thomas Webb, and I'm pastor of the Buck Creek Baptist Church. We dealt with session 1 the other day, and so we're going to deal with session 2 today. I want us to take a moment to think about the 4 different C's that deal with career success, with skills, creativity, critical thinking, communication, collaboration. Now, last session, in session number 1, we dealt with creativity and critical thinking. And we thought about how that employees, remember we talked about how that there are oftentimes employers and employees, and the employer wants people that can think for themselves. They don't want to be able to tell you every move. They want you to be able to take, and they want you to be able to think about what is the problem, how do we handle it. And so last session, you dealt with some of those things. You talked about some of those things, and that was some of the things that you did look at in your activity. Today we're going to deal with communication. As we deal with communication, I want today to stop to think about when I was in college, I had already started pastoring. I started pastoring in 1984. That's many, many years ago. And as I started pastoring, I started going and helping people and ministering and preaching. But then I started back to college to finish my education. And in doing so, one of the things I realized is I needed a class that dealt with communication. I had it on a Thursday night over in Todd County, and it was such a help to me and everything, because I began to realize there's a lot of different ways to communicate. You communicate by verbally, talking to someone. I talk pretty fast, so you have to listen fast. Also, there's a way of written. Sometimes people text each other messages. They have different kind of notes. They write letters to one another, things like that. So there's a verbal, there's a written. The way you stand is a way of communication. You can be slouched or you can just stand up and everything. There are people that are kneeling, and I don't suggest that at the national anthem. I say you ought to stand during the national anthem. But anyway, I just want you to understand there's a lot of different ways of communicating. Sometimes looking at people, it's facial communication. You can smile at people, you can be happy, or you can frown at people. And so therefore, you don't have to say anything. I can say something right now, and you might be looking at somebody frowning like, really? We got to sit and listen to this guy again? And so that's the way of communicating. Now, I'm not saying it. Your teacher may be saying it to others, but I'm not seeing that and everything. So there are many different ways to communication, facial, a tone of voice. You can See, I preach with passion whenever I preach. And so therefore, my tone of voice goes up. Sometimes it goes a little down. You might have a tone of communication that is real, small, and you don't say a whole lot. But then when you do, sometimes people get angry and their voice level goes up. And so you just have to try to figure out, how am I communicating through the things I say and do? Let's look at the definition of communication. The communication is the process of sharing thoughts, questions, ideas, or solutions. So it's a process and everything. Think about it. There's a lot of different ways, again, to communicate and everything. And so you're thinking about things. You're asking questions and things of that nature. Let's look at different tips of communication in the workplace. First of all, you got to carefully choose your words and everything. Now, what I mean by that is that when you go to work for someone, you've got to be able to avoid different slang words and be able to casual terms that you perhaps use around your buddies, but you wouldn't want to use in the workplace. For example, whenever you go and you're being an interview, they may ask you some questions, and the proper way is to say yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. But if you go in there and they say, well, are you ready to come to work? Nah. Well, listen, that's a slang word, and it's probably not going to go very, very well. I've got slang words in my vocabulary and everything that sometimes I use, like, hey, dude. Well, you wouldn't want to go into your boss and say, hey, dude, what's kicking? You got to be able to use things in the right way, and the tips as far as choosing the right word. Next of all, let's look at stay professional in your nonverbal communication. In other words, again, nonverbal communication is the way you stand, your posture, your facial expression, things of that nature. And so you got to make sure that you're professional in those things. Again, if you're standing and talking to me, I might be talking to someone at a principal, and I'm going to have my hands folded. I'm going to be looking them eyeball to eyeball and everything. Another one is use active listening. Active listening means that you're paying attention to what they're saying. You're not distracted. You're listening in. You're not just ready to say what I got to say. See, sometimes I'm guilty of that. Sometimes when you're talking to me, I may already be thinking about how I'm going to respond, and I'm ready for you to stop where I can start. Well, active listening means that you're listening to them, you're thinking about what they're saying, you're processing all that, and then avoid multitasking. In other words, you don't want to be texting. Cincinnati Reds have their cardboard cutouts right now at their ball games because they're not allowed to have fans there. And so I'm a big Cincinnati Reds fan, and what I see happening and everything is that they got these cardboard cutouts, and whenever there's a hit or whenever there's a home run, you'll hear the cheers and things of that nature that is put through the PA system. Well, what somebody said the other day is one of the announcers said, if you really want to make it look real, let them be looking at their phone. Because a lot of time, that's what people are doing. They're going to ball games, they're sitting and looking at the phone. So if I was talking to you and you're fiddling with the phone, you're texting someone, well, what I know is that you're really not paying attention and engaged to what I've got to say and everything. You need to give people your undivided attention and everything. Let's look at two other definitions and everything. Conflict and conflict management. Now, you should have received a little fact sheet, and you'll notice these terms on the back and the definition on the back, as well as these tips to communication on the front of your fact sheet and everything. But notice what those definitions are there and everything. Conflict, it's a disagreement over opinions, principles, or interests. Now, here's what I want you to understand. You got two people, you got two different ideas. You got two different opinions. Everybody has an opinion and everything. And so just to understand, a conflict is when people, they disagree. Conflict management is the process of handling fairly between people, opposing needs, ideas, and goals. So how are you going to handle problems? You say, you ever have problems at church? Absolutely. You ever have conflict? Absolutely. We got some that want to reopen, some that don't reopen. Some want to wear masks, some that don't. Some want to take temperature, some don't. There's always conflict. So how do we handle those in the right way and everything? Let's look at why conflict management is important. First of all, conflict happens and everything. People will disagree. Also, as an employee, you are expected to handle work conflict with your mind, not your emotion. In other words, don't take it personal. Think about it. Process. When something's going on, how do we handle that? What's best for everybody? And process the reasoning and everything, but don't take it personal and everything. Another reason why it's important, if conflict are handled well, there can be higher quality work and a better work atmosphere. So when you handle things right, people get along, people are happy. You get more things done. But when you don't, then it's going to cause chaos, it's going to cost money. You'll notice there, if conflict festers, it costs businesses and employees a lot of time, money, and energy. So they've got to stop and they've got to deal with that and everything. So it's just making sure that you handle conflict in the right way. Being able to communicate with one another effectively and everything. Now let's take a moment to review. Employers want and need employees with good workplace communication. So being able to say yes sir, no sir, being able to communicate with people the right way. Second of all, learning to deal with conflict is crucial to your success, not only in work, but in life. So when you learn to deal with it in the right way, it'll help you at work, it'll help you in your life. And then in your next session, you're going to be looking at using collaboration and creativity to excel at work and everything. Now, your Section 2's activity, your teacher will be going over this. You'll complete these activities over conflict management, and then make sure you put them in your toolbox. Thank you for watching today. God bless you.